And good morning, everybody. It is the last of the early earlies for the morning coffee show. We are back to normal next week. Good morning, Trevor. How are you?
Doing all right. Doing all right. Yes, like you said, the final of the early. It's always early, but double your early, double your fun.
Um, it's the end of the week. Everybody's upbeat. We've got a game to go at the weekend, and thankfully for once, a nice afternoon game for us. Not
Yeah.
not not want to be getting up on your normal work hours, which would be fantastic. But we will get to that soon. The biggest news for Liverpool fans, at least, I think, is Jurgen Klopp will not miss any game time um, for his tirade at the assistant referee in the which game was it again? City or Forest? City.
Yeah.
In the City
This is
game.
after the Bernardo Silva rugby tackle.
That's the one, yeah. A nice little fine, which I'm sure he can afford, or the club can afford at least. And that's it, just a little slap on the wrist. But we have pundits such as Simon Jordan slamming the decision.
What a
Um,
surprise.
yeah, he always has something to say, that guy. But all in all, I mean, it is kind of true for the overall good of the game that you kind of don't want to see professional managers getting into that state, because as always, it always filters down into the grassroots level when it's a consistent behavior. But we know Klopp is passionate on the sidelines, and he does have an occasional, um, let's say, feisty rebuttal of some decisions on the field. But he's definitely not one like, say, like a Neil Warnock that's constantly getting into the ref's ear at pretty much every minute of the match, or a Diego Simeone or Conte or something like that. Um, But really, I mean, it wasn't a marginal decision that didn't go our way. It was almost out and out assault on the field, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that's kind of where you have to find those nuances with all these things. Yes, he bumped an official, and that probably should have got him a game. In my mind, he should have gotten a game ban, and then it would have been done with that, because he didn't like go up and throw like a forearm shiver on the ref or something. He bumped up against him while he was just very animated. In one, but you can't do that, so on and so forth. But everything's come out. They've done their things. They've felt they've handled it the way they needed to handle it. So, but yeah, the, yeah, it wasn't a debate of offsides. It was a debate of uh, wrestling technique of Bernardo Silva right in front of an assistant referee, and then it just getting waved off by the lead official, and then him just letting both of them know how he felt about the lack of decision.
Good morning, Alan. There, for everybody else who's watching, make sure you drop your comments in. But at the same time, it's such a high stakes game with so much riding on it, and especially with the season we're having right now, you can kind of understand the frustration at the inconsistency of the refereeing. Because I'm sure if we look back at the game, we could find a similar incident that was called, maybe not as dramatically done as
Yeah,
the one on Salah, but I'm sure, um, as any coach at any level is, you're almost recording things that you're seeing on the field to make sure, from the ref's perspective, to make sure that they're calling the shots equally in favor or out of favor for both teams. Um, and it wasn't even like a mutual short pulling and one player
yeah,
flops to the ground. It was literally, I'm just gonna. It was something you'd see in SummerSlam or
yeah.
WrestleMania almost, wasn't it?
And that is the underlying thing of all this was just the egregiousness of it, and you're sitting there going, how are you even trying to like interpret that as something that deserves to be on the field, especially in a moment like that between two players of that. It wasn't like Ruben Diaz coming over and like crunching him. It was like Bernardo Silva just chasing him down on a ball going into the corner, and just out and out thought he was playing American football, and they just sat there in like stunned disbelief when there wasn't a card, there wasn't anything, and you're just going as a viewer going, oh, what are they even going to like go to VAR on that? And then just to have it all brushed aside and waved away. Yeah, if I was in Klopp's position, I would have probably, I well, because I'm a bit of a sissy, I wouldn't have fought anybody, but I would have gotten very, very loud and very, very vulgar.
I mean, the thing about it is, and you mentioned it there as well. It's not just the flawed judgment of the referees. It's also the fact that it wasn't even called back by VAR, because had that tackle not happened, had he or had Salah managed to slip it, he was pretty much clear away in towards goal with very little pressure at that point, because they had broken forward before we got the ball. So it wasn't a clear goal scoring opportunity. So never worthy of any sort of red card decision, but definitely something where
free kick in the yellow, 100%.
Free kick in the yellow, or even worse, had they scored from that attack, we're you know, in a justified position to complain. But the second part of the whole thing is that even since the incident, and now, as we saw, Simon Jordan, from, I think he's still at Crystal Palace as the owner. I can't remember him.
Former owner of Palace,
you know, there was a lot of media complaint about the whole incident and Klopp's behaviour in general from people that generally haven't managed or coached anywhere. It seemed to really rile people up, at least in the English media, didn't it?
Yeah, because they viewed it as kind of just a sign of like ultimate disrespect, and that is, like you said, just a sign of somebody who's never coached before or been in one of those situations where you see your player particularly aggrieved, and then you're trying to just get their attention and they're just not listening to you, so you have to like push it up to 11 and they're still not. And then when you hit 12, the thing breaks, and then you start to really just fall apart, and you do stuff that you probably shouldn't.
I think, like, as well, like for the pundits, I mean, a lot of the pundits that were very anti-Klopp in this situation, I mean, a lot of them were ex-players, but not people who have spent any amount of time on the sidelines as a manager or a coach. And I know myself, like, literally the only card I got as a player or a coach, I got sent off for a tight game where a referee wasn't calling. I mean, it was only a high school game, but as anybody who's done American high school sports knows, sometimes you get homer referees. That is they always come from the same region. But literally, it's a situation where one of my players actually had the ball and was dribbling across the field and was fouled. But in the foul, the opposition player that fell, my player fell over at the same time because his momentum took him over, and they got the free kick. And then my player, obviously a young teenage boy, was complaining because he had all that like anger in him because he had the ball and couldn't understand why he was penalised, and he got a yellow card for complaining, and then I got a red card for asking the referee what the yellow card was for. And it's people kind of don't understand in the punditry business. You put so much work into, like, all these managers and coaches putting so much work with a high level of stress involved in it into their plans for the week, and the least you can do is trust the officials to actually know their jobs, isn't it? You really expect that level of referee to know what is a foul and what isn't a foul, and when you don't see it, it's probably bound to get some frustrations going, isn't it?
Yeah, and it goes with every sport. You have people and especially on that kind of youth level, you have people in the stands giving you crap the entire time. You have your administration possibly sitting there trying to micromanage you, and you're just going, all right, I've worked 3 practices in 3 days with these kids, and we've tried to do something, and they're doing it, and now that plan is falling apart because some guy who went to the opposing school 25 years ago wants to curry some favor, and you're like, okay, that's no, that ain't how it works, bud. And I think that's what a lot of British referees get stick for, because you'll see in like certain big games, and then you just look up their like bio and like, oh, the guy from Manchester called 3 penalties for United. What a surprise. And you're just going, and I think this is something like Timuchin and I have had conversations before, where it's just, there are good referees in this league, but there are just really ingrained biases in some of them, where they just shouldn't be allowed to do certain games with certain teams, yet they do. And when stuff happens, everybody's like, I can't believe it. He's supposed to be professional. I'm like, yeah, but he also probably went to school with like some of these people's parents. They probably know each other from the community, and you can't really turn that off all the time. So having referees from out of the country come in for some games and just kind of like test it out and do that, and you just kind of take all of those innate biases off the table. So if there's a mess up, you're going, okay, he just messed up, and it's not like he ignored it because he liked players X, Y, and Z more. So yeah, it's one of those things with refereeing, especially in England, that you always have to kind of try to find that extra little bit of what's going on, and it's frustrating. And for Klopp, yeah, it's in that instance itself, a million things had to have been running through his head of like, why did this guy not call this? Do I need to go like check to see who his neighbor is or something? And that's just not something you should have to do while you're coaching.
Not to suggest there was anything untoward with that assistant referee other than just incompetent, but it always strikes me as an amazing thing when you look at the English referees at the Premier League level, and you see like their favorite team, the team that they support since they were a young lad or lass, and it's always a non-league team. You never see one that's like an Arsenal that says like, former Arsenal season ticket holder.
Yeah.
It always amazes me that they're always from non-league, as if it's like they, because I'm sure they have to declare like if they support a certain team, and they all support their local team, because then if they said I support Manchester United, guess which games they're never going to get? It's the Manchester United games. I think that's a really, I'd actually much prefer the transparency, because even in our favor, if there's a Liverpool game and then the referee, the potential referee is, I'm a Liverpool fan, and then we play the game, then at least if they do make those kind of mistakes, we'll know there's a bit of bias, rather than trying to guess why this player from the centre of Old Trafford, or the centre of Trafford rather, in Manchester is an Altrincham fan. That doesn't make any sense. Come on. So that little bit of honesty be there. But I mean, I think you're correct. Those biases do exist, and maybe the solution is, at least on a trial basis, is to bring some non-English referees, maybe continental referees in for at least the big games where things are at stake, to remove that. But I think, I take your point that maybe a one-game ban would have like set an example, but it's a slap on the wrist and a fine. But the outrage on that alone is just ridiculous.
It's a bit over the top. It's theater. They want to be mad because they want to be mad, and it's something where the FA obviously deemed that the fine was enough, that the contact with the official, while not setting a great precedent for that, it wasn't something where he went in for like a full body block, like he grazed him as he was running alongside. So it wasn't something where he tried to recreate Bernardo tackling Salah on the poor official. he kind of overstepped his bounds enough where there was something that, and I think we all agree as Liverpool fans, like if he got that 1 game ban, none of us would have cried about it. It would just been like, it's done. We're through it. We're gone. If it was something where they gave him like 10 matches, okay, we would definitely have to pipe up about that. But I think we all agreed through like all of these shows that we do in the Discord chat, one would have been like the sweet spot in terms of a potential punishment, and the fact that it just turned out to be a fine. The people who are getting mad about it just need something to yell about on the radio.
I think as well, like this new card system for coaches, kind of it almost ramps up the intensity of the scrutiny, so to speak, because of itself, his one altercation, because that was the first time the ref had to come over to talk to any of the managers in what's usually a very passionate game. I think I may be wrong on that, but certainly a straight red for a coach. It seems like you'd probably want to deck somebody before you got a straight red, rather than, here's a yellow, stop shouting at the assistant referees. So even the punishment originally just seems slightly out of proportion to what actually happened. That couldn't have been, maybe a more experienced ref may have just calmed things down a bit before heading to that. But either way, no game ban. It suits us, especially for this weekend's game. But moving on to authoritative things yet again, but something that if you wrote this as a plot to a movie, you'd say this is a little bit unbelievable. And it is apparently CIA spies were spying for Qatar in the run-up to the bids for the World Cup, before the actual final decision was made. And this World Cup already had enough taint on it beforehand with money changing hands, etc. I mean, that is just a bizarre story, isn't it?
There's a lot. And this is one of those things where the more you try to like read about it, the more your head just hurts, because there's so many hands in the cookie jar and so many people investigating it from so many different angles that you don't really have the highest of hopes that anything fruitful is going to come from it. It's just going to be a bunch of people laying like, hey, I have this report about this thing that I saw. Cool. What are you going to do about it? No, the cool report is what I did. It's 191 pages and it's written in 5 languages. Read it. I'm going to put it through a paywall. Okay, cool. I don't have the highest of hopes that anything's going to come out on the back end. They're not going to cancel the World Cup 20 days out. So it's something where, if some people are brought to justice from it down the road, great. But I don't think it's going to do anything for the past transgressions anytime soon, and it's not going to affect the tournament at all.
I think the World Cup, this World Cup already has enough social justice negatives already going into it, with Qatar's own laws and its treatment of the workers and its treatment of its own citizens. And this seems like, on one hand, another thing to add to the pile. But at the same time, it almost makes it a little bit more fun, doesn't it, to think that there's a James Bond out there who's trying to turn people's heads so they vote for this particular World Cup to go to this particular country. And I'm almost picturing roulette tables and women with really risque names and laser beams, etc., gadgets and everything, just to get a World Cup to a desert.
Yeah, and as fun as that sounds, and as much as we probably want that to be true, it's probably some like dumpy old guy from like a country that no one can pick out of a map, walking around in like a sweatsuit, just going into these federations and going, hey, well, I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine. No, literally, I have to. It really itches. Can you scratch it? Uh, and then just leaving a duffel bag of money and then walking out to like a local Chipotle or something. There's it's probably very sad.
I mean, to be fair, it'd be great if this World Cup was the World Cup that was decided by eczema. That would be a fun thing. But going forward,
sponsorship opportunities.
yeah, hydrocortisone 10. Who needs Nike? But the thing is that going forward, though, it is something to maybe pay attention to because the World Cup is such a huge deal and it's a huge amount of money is involved in it. And sure, there was definitely on the FIFA side political back scratching in terms of buying votes by promising things for federations, etc. But we don't really need. I mean, it is the premier, as far as I'm concerned, even more than the Champions League, it's the premier soccer competition in the world, and you don't really need it to be sullied any more than it usually is with stuff like this. I mean, it almost calls into question how Russia would get any tournament or got the 2018, was it last World Cup, Russia? I mean, and especially since they're known for killing people at long distances. You maybe want to get the FBI to be looking into that as well, do you think?
Yeah, and I think going backwards is probably not going to bring anything up for them that they will be able to use in any way, shape, or form. There's just been so much time passed, even time passed with some of the human rights violations that the Qataris have had. But I think it's going to put a lot more scrutiny on the bidding process for the ones that come after we host it in 2026 with Mexico and Canada, because one, they're trying to do that whole put it every 2 years thing and expand the field and do all that. So they're going to need more places to put it. And I don't necessarily agree that every 2 years is the way it should be, but we'll see. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But there's already rumblings that there's a lot of Asian federations that are trying to kind of get their foothold on that again, and there's a lot of money over there that could really turn a lot of people's heads. That if we had like the 2030 World Cup in China, it wouldn't necessarily surprise me, but maybe we should stop before we are even having that conversation. that's kind of just where my head's at.
I think in general, definitely something we should look at, and hopefully this is an isolated incident. It's just for this World Cup, and we don't have to worry about that too much. Going to something a bit more serious now. We have this story here. If we could get the technology to work, there you go.
Oh yeah.
The Arsenal defender Pablo Mari stabbed in Italy. It was a shopping mall incident. Tragic enough as it is, one person died. I don't remember Pablo Mari actually ever playing for Arsenal. He didn't stand out for me in any way, shape, or form, which is probably why he's on loan. But although it was a non-soccer related incident, it's still not something you like to see, is it?
No, and especially from the reports I was reading that, yeah, he's kind of like nondescript, but you're talking about a human being that got stabbed, and he was standing there when the guy who was murdered was killed. So he like watched this dude die while he was getting stabbed himself. So that's, yeah, footballer or not, Arsenal loanee or not, that's just one of those things that you're just going to have those conversations, and it brings just a lot of fun political arguments and anything like, well, we were talking about gun control, but this was a knife that he just pulled from the stand. And you're like, oh God, are we just going to do this this carousel of bullshit again. Which, of course, if you go through different places that reported it, and then you look at even the comments of it, it's just a cesspool. And it's something where you can just be going like, hey, can we just talk about how harrowing this was for the people involved first before we, dive cannonball first into a discussion of, well, should we sell knives in supermarkets? And it's just, speedy recovery, Pablo.
In terms of the player himself, I mean, we talk a lot about players getting injured and how they're going to come back from that, especially bad injuries. But I mean, this has a whole other mental component to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't know how you'd have the mental fortitude to. And we've seen it a couple times with guys in the States where they've been attacked and they come back for it and they're strong, but seeing somebody killed while getting attacked, I think that's the part where your head's going to kind of fuck with you for a lot longer than it should.
I think if we think back, I mean, apart from the physical part of it, it took Ericsson a long time to get back into it, if I remember correctly, after his near-death experience. But at least he, by all accounts, by his own account, actually, he wasn't even aware that it happened. Whereas Pablo Mari now, I mean, we're talking post-traumatic stress disorder of a magnitude higher than any soccer-related injury. No matter no matter if you got your leg broken in 3 places and the bone was sticking out, it's still not as impactful as watching somebody die right in front of you. So we hope. I'm sure all soccer fans are the same. We hope he recovers as much as he can, but it's probably going to affect the rest of his career, isn't it?
I would imagine it would just, if we'll see his resolve from it, and best of luck and recovery in all phases of his life from this point, because it's not going to be easy.
And then finally for today, we have that game on, is it Sunday for us? Or Saturday?
Yeah, the late game Saturday.
Late game Saturday, yeah, perfect. And
2:45 Eastern time.
2:45 Eastern time. That's even better. Leeds, we talked last night in the Thursday night podcast about Jesse Marsch and the trouble he's in. We talked about the carrying over the almost consistent solidity, of the Ajax performance into the next game. Are we going to kill Jesse Marsch's Leeds career this weekend, Trevor?
I don't think he's going to get Scott Parkered. I think it's not going to be that type of game. If you listen to his press conference, he's a guy that is significantly upset by the amount that he's losing and is going to try to do his best to put out a team that is not built to not lose, but is going to come out and give us a fight. And while I feel he's going to be on the losing end, it's not going to be the bloodbath that a lot of people think it's going to be with that guy's head on the chopping block.
What is your score prediction for this weekend?
I'm going 2-0.
Yeah, I think that was the consensus last night as well, between Dave and myself. I think 2-0 is a safe enough score in Liverpool's favour. Who do you get? Who gets the goals for us?
I'm going to say Darwin gets one, and I'm going to leave one to a substitute to be named.
I'm sure Timuchin is hoping it's Ox. I'm gonna push the boat out with my terrible predictions. I'm gonna say Darwin Núñez brace. Both goals from Darwin, because he looks like he knows what's going on now, and that could be a scary prospect for everybody. Well, Trevor, it's been an enjoyable week on early earlies with you. Enjoy the game this weekend. There may be post-match, pre-match shows, so keep an eye out on the Discord channel, on the YouTube, on the Facebook page.
Leave your score predictions in the comments wherever you're watching this.
And yes, and if we all get 2-0, maybe the universe will will it to happen for us. But like, subscribe, comment, join the Discord channel. The Fantasy Football Show and the EPL Review Show are out as well. Make sure you catch up on those, especially the fantasy football today, because there's no games today, but your time for changing your teams is rapidly approaching. And we will see you back next Monday at the usual time of 9 a.m. Eastern, which is 8 a.m. is it Central? Thereabouts. Yes. And nobody cares about Mountain Time, so tough luck for those people. And enjoy the game, enjoy the weekend. Trevor, good to talk to you as always. And everybody else, peace out.